Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the DC Capstone Report. It is great to be back with you this week for another podcast on Alabama football. Coming off an impressive victory over the LSU Tigers there in Baton Rouge, and getting ready for a showdown with the Mercer Bears on Saturday here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock. Well, I just want to thank everyone for listening to our podcast. We got over 3,000 plays of our podcast this past week. Had so many people texting us, messaging us, and liking us. We appreciate that. I want to thank Lance Shores for all the hard work he does in producing this podcast each and every week. Our sponsors, RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. And our sponsor who allows us to do this, Karen Cottingham Realtor, right here in Tuscaloosa with the Williams Group of Keller Williams. For all your real estate needs, you can seek out Karen Cottingham right there on our website. DCCapstoneReport.com. Lance has a button that you can push and get to see all of Karen's inventory on her website there that she has available for you to look at here in Tuscaloosa and all across the state of Alabama. So for all your real estate needs, again, that's Karen Cottingham Realtor right here in Tuscaloosa with the Williams Group at Keller Williams. Your phone number is 205-887-4008. Well, it's great to be back on another podcast. I want to thank you all for listening. We couldn't make this possible with all of our listeners who are loyal to listen each and every week. We really appreciate what you do for us and allowing us to keep doing this. So this week on the podcast, in the first segment, we're going to review the impressive victory against the LSU Tigers. In our second segment, we're going to take a look at our players of the game against LSU. In our third and final segment, we're going to preview the upcoming matchup against the Mercer Bears.
You're listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on the Martin Houston Show at Tide 100.9. You can listen live at Tide100.9.com.
Well, welcome back to the DC Capstone Report. It is great to be back with you talking about another victory, and I mean a big victory over the LSU Tigers. Alabama came out of Baton Rouge with a 42-13 victory over LSU under the lights in Death Valley Stadium. It was a rainy night. Really bad weather, but Alabama played a great game. Let me just start off by saying I've said this on other platforms, on other shows that I've been on, but let me just tell you, I believe this was the best game Alabama has played all year, the most complete game that Alabama has played all year. And I want to thank you for our listeners who recognize what we talked about last week in the podcast. I've had several people who message me, reach out to me and say, hey, you checked all the boxes about what we needed to do to win, and it looks like we did that in our game against LSU. So that's exactly right. I called it last week that we had to win the turnover battle. We did that. We had to win the time possession, and we did that. We had to win the third down efficiency, and we did that. And we had to run the ball and run our offense through Jalen Milroe, and we did that. So let's just look down at a breakdown of the game. First of all, on offense, what a great job we did in recognizing the nature of the game, what LSU was going to have trouble with, what the weather was going to do. Everything that we did prepared us for a great game on running the ball. And we had an extraordinarily rushing attack. 311 rushing yards on the ground. 311 rushing yards. And Jalen Milroe did a perfect job of executing the plays that were called for him to use his legs. I've said for the last several weeks that something has been holding him back, some kind of nagging injuries. Not enough to keep him out of the game, not enough to hurt him if he continued playing, but enough to slow him down. And this, you saw with the week off, that he was on point. His speed was on point. I learned from the very first play where he stuck his foot in the ground and turned that touchdown run, you learned then that, hey, he is healthy. He's back. And Jalen Milroe played a wonderful game in this game. And I made this statement, and I'll make it for this podcast. You can mark it down. It'll forever be out here in the internet for everybody to listen to. And that is this. When Jalen Milroe plays the way he played Saturday, he makes the entire football team better. What do I mean by that? His relentless play, his enthusiasm, his excitement, his passion bleeds over to the defense. The defense plays better when Jalen Milroe plays the way he does. The offense is certainly better when Jalen Milroe plays the way he does, and the team is much better when Jalen Milroe plays like he did on Saturday. And here again, I'll make this statement, and I mean it. If Jalen Milroe plays the way they played Saturday, and the Alabama team plays the way they did Saturday, then they can beat any team in America. Yes, I mean it. They could win the national championship if they play every game after this the way they played Saturday. And so I just can't tell you enough about how good it feels to see the team making strides and making adjustments and doing some things. But the running game was effective. It ran really well through Jalen Milroe. He had, of his own stats, he had 12 carries for 185 yards and 4 touchdowns. His final touchdown run, the fourth one, of a 72-yard run, he was clocked at over 22.4 miles per hour, the fastest he's ever been clocked before. So he was exemplary in running the ball. But he not only that, but passing the ball and taking advantage of what we gave him. He had a couple of drop balls, and still he went 12 of 18 on his passes. The 2 deep balls that he missed had something to do with the rain. I'm pretty sure of those. It was on the fingertips of Ryan Williams and Emmanuel Henderson. He missed those 2, but Kendrick Law dropped one that was in his hands. Jerry Bernard dropped one that was in his hands. And so if you look at his passing attempts, 12 versus 18 attempts, 12 completions, he did a stellar job in throwing the ball as well. But what I enjoyed most was taking advantage of what LSU was going to give it. And I have to give credit. I've been critical of the offensive coordinators calling some plays, but in this game, the offensive coordinator called a great game. And he took advantage of what they were giving him. What I mean by that, if you watch the film, LSU was walking their linebackers up. They were pressuring. They got to Jalen Milroe a couple of times, but one time they did. They still got a penalty for a face mask, so that didn't hurt us. But mainly, we were able to stop them walking up by taking advantage of throwing over their heads to the running back coming out of the backfield. And I thought it was such a great to see Jalen Milroe progressing to be able to hit his running back when they were in the option for the throwing the ball. So throwing to the running backs was good. Taking advantage of that, hitting some crossing routes, hitting some timing routes was good to see that. And then him running the ball. So overall on offense, I thought we played a tremendous offensive game. On defense, it was really superb, really good. Held them to just 2 field goals up until the last 27 seconds of the game where we gave up a final touchdown there. But overall, we just dominated them on defense. Caused 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. And just the way we were able to stop their running game. They had been running the ball really well. And in this game, if you look at their individual players on their running the ball, running the game, none of their running backs broke 100 yards. None of them. Durham was 8 carries for 63 yards, and that was the bulk of their running back play. And really just a great opportunity for our defense to control the line of scrimmage. Our defensive line played superb. Linebackers played superb. I said last week on the podcast, if you put Garrett Nussmeier in positions where he can get pressured, he would make mistakes. And he did just that in this game. He threw 2 interceptions, 2 picks. He was 27 of 42, threw the ball 42 times in this game. Now, he was way behind and he had to throw a lot, but our defense was up for the part. On those 42 attempts, he only gained 239 yards, and he had that final touchdown in the last 20 seconds of the game. But those 2 interceptions were huge. And also the fumble that he had on the strip sack. If you remember that strip sack well, and I'll talk about it a little later in our second segment, but that came right after them stopping us on a 4th down, giving them back some momentum. We go in and get a strip sack. He loses the fumble, pressures him, and we get the ball back and go down and score ourselves. So it was a big, big turnaround in the game. So our defense played a whale of the game in this game. Just so proud to see our defensive coordinator getting making some adjustments, making some changes, and doing some things in the game on the fly that make a difference in the game. So overall, I believe it was the best offensive performance and best defensive performance that we've had this year. And if we play like this in every other game that we played the rest of the year, we have a chance to win the national championship. And that's the question. Can we maintain this level of play for the rest of this year? If we do, the national championship is within our grasp. Well, welcome back on the DC Capstone Report. Here in the second segment, we're going to look at our players of the game against LSU. But before we do that, just want to remind you of our sponsors, RollTideBama.com, FreelancePictures.com, and also Karen Cottingham Realtor right here in Tuscaloosa with the Williams Group at Keller Williams for all your real estate needs. Go out there and like us on Facebook. Go to DCCapstoneReport.com. You can find us on YouTube. We're also on Spotify. Share it with your friends. Let them know about this podcast so they can listen to us each and every week as well. All right, let's get right back to it with the players of the game. Let's start on defense. Well, I have one player of the game on defense. In my estimation, he's the player that really stepped up his game. He's been player of the game before and really been my player of the game several times this year. But in this game, really was a difference maker, and that is number 11, Jihad Campbell, a linebacker who was active, did a great job in this game. When I say active, he had 12 tackles. Get that, folks. He was on 12 tackles, 6 solo tackles, and 6 assisted tackles. He had 1.5 sacks, and he had a strip fumble. He was the one that caused that strip fumble that was a turning point in the game where they had stopped us from a 4th down conversion, and they had they got the ball back and had some momentum. And on the very first play, Jihad Campbell blitzes in, runs right to the quarterback, and strip sacks him to just get the ball out, and Tim Smith recovered it. So it's a real big turning point in the game. But I think overall, when you look at Jihad Campbell's play, he's elevated it game after game after game. If he continues to play like this, he'll be a challenger for some of those end of the year awards on the defensive side of the ball. I think the SEC recognized him this week as a defensive player of the week for what he did in this game, and we recognize him on here as a player on defense as well. On offense, I don't think you can look anywhere on that game and find another offensive player that had any better production than Jalen Milroe on this Saturday. He was 12 of 18 for 109 yards passing the ball, and then had 12 carries for 185 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's right, folks, 4 touchdowns. And just played a great game offensively. This has elevated him back into the Heisman Trophy talk. I know he's probably like 6th in the projections at this point, but he was way out of it up until this game. So this game has pushed him back into that kind of level of play, that kind of level of talk. But more than that, he was recognized as a National Player of the Week this week. He was a PFF Player of the Week on offense. He was recognized as the SEC Player of the Week on offense. So he is our player of the game on offense, and I really believe that he has had his best game. If he'll build off of that, he'll continue to have better games down the road. I think he can really make a difference in this team. I believe the way how he plays is the way this team is going to play down the road as well. And then I just want to mention 2 positions, and don't have to call out names, but 2 positions. That is our offensive line and our defensive line. I think our offensive line and our defensive line won the line of scrimmage in this game. Offensive line did some great things. A couple of our offensive linemen were recognized for National Players of the Week on National Players of the Week teams. Our defensive line did a great job of stopping their running game and putting pressure on the quarterback in the passing game. So I think my players of the game this week are the entire offensive line, defensive line, Jalen Milroe on offense, and Jihad Campbell on defense. Well, welcome back to the DC Capstone Report, folks. We're here on our 3rd and final segment where we're going to preview the upcoming game against the Mercer Bears. The Mercer Bears. Now, that's the FCS team, and most people will go into this game talking about, hey, how bad are we going to beat them? How bad are we going to win this game? When can we rest our players? Now, folks, that's not how we need to be talking about. We need to go into this game with the first thing is we need to guard against is a letdown. Remember, after the huge win against Georgia, we came out the very next week Didn't take Vanderbilt seriously, and laid an egg at Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt beat us. So that's what we got to guard against in this. With no letdown. Big win at LSU. We need to be on point to play Mercer. We should not worry about what division they're in. And if it is a worry, we need to know that, hey, they have a record of 9-1. Record of 9-1. So they're doing well. The only game they've lost was one where they had several turnovers in against Stanford Bulldogs and lost it like 55-35. So they can score some points. They have a high explosive offense. So look, it is extremely important for us to not have a letdown. So what's my number one thing this week? No letdown. We did it with Vanderbilt. We can't do it against the Mercer Bears. And that means all of you fans as well. You got to fill up the stadium. You got to cheer throughout the game. You got to get this team pumped up with energy to come in and play against an FCS opponent that they're supposed to win. They need to go in and have no letdown. The second thing is still a mental thing, and that is we've got to go in and dominate our opponent. We can't think about who they are. We got to go in and dominate them in every phase of the game. If we do that, we won't have a letdown. If we go in there and do what we're supposed to do and take care of business, we can do that. But we have to respect our opponent. They're 9-1 for a reason. They've won 9 games, and we've got to respect that. We can't go in there thinking that we're going to get rest. We got to go in there thinking we're going to dominate and get so far ahead that we have to rest our players. So I think that's important on how the mindset we need to have going in. And then, like any other matchup, we need to go in and play this game as well as we played the LSU game. We need to go in with the same power, the same passion, and go in and play this game to the best of our ability. That means every player on the team needs to be locked in. And when it comes time for our players to get a chance, we need to take advantage of that opportunity. If we get so far ahead that some of our subs get to play, let's play them. Let them run the offense. Let them have opportunities to play and run the offense. Let them play on defense. We've done a good job of getting our people in on defense a lot. We haven't got as many substitutions in on offense. If we get a chance to do that, let's dominate our opponent to get so far ahead where we get to do that. We don't go in expecting it. We go in expecting to dominate so that we get to do that. I think that's the whole key, folks. Not have a letdown and to dominate the opponent. So on offense, what do we have to do? We go out and play our game with no mistakes, no turnovers. That's how we keep the other teams in the game, is our mistakes and turnovers. We need to go in and win the third down efficiency. We need to go in and have time of possession. Make sure that we're scoring touchdowns as many as possible every time we get the opportunity. We got to take advantage of every opportunity to score and do it early enough so that we can put this team away and dominate them early. I believe if we do that on offense, we'll be in good shape. On defense, we got to go in and realize that this team is capable of beating us if we let down and if we give up turnovers or we give up big plays, explosive plays. So what we need to do is go in there and dominate the person in front of us. Don't worry about what it says on their jersey. Just know that they're a worthy opponent, and we go in there and dominate them defensively. That means hit them hard, hit them often, make them give up the ball, get off the field on third down, and create turnovers on interceptions and fumbles. And then when we do that, we've got to take advantage of that on our offense. Now, do I think that we're going to win this game? Absolutely. But did I think the same thing against Vanderbilt? Absolutely. We have to go in and dominate this team, not just win it. We got to dominate it. We got to win it because we're supposed to win it, and we got to dominate them in a way that will let everyone know that we're not going to make the same mistake. Let's learn from our mistakes at Vanderbilt and go in and beat the Mercer Bears in a very handily fashion. And I think we'll do that. I think we're going to get out heavy enough, up long enough that we'll be able to play some of our reserves and opportunities for them to score as well against our second team. But I think Alabama's going to win this game and come out a big victory. We're going to see big plays, big offensive plays, big defensive stops. And I got Alabama winning this game. Alabama 51, Mercer 14. Well, that's it for the DC Capstone Report this week. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget our sponsors, RollTideBama.com, FreelancePictures.com, and Karen Cottingham Realtor right here in Tuscaloosa with the Williams Group at Keller Williams. Want to thank Lance Shores, as always, for being our person in the studio producing this podcast. If you want to see some great pictures of any of the cheerleaders, the band, the Alabama football players, Lance will be here taking some great photos this week, and he'll have them up on the website at freelancepictures.com, rolltoalabama.com, sometime soon after the game this week. So if you're in town, make sure you come, make sure you stay, make sure you yell loud. This is DC with the DC Capstone Report signing off today with a big Roll Tide.